So hi, I'm Ed Cox. I'm the other co-founder of Reason Digital. You heard from my other co-founder, Matt Howarth, this morning. I don't get out to do talks very often, and you'll probably find out why as I go along. So welcome to this, the first of a limited series that I'm calling Ed Talks. So I'm going to give a tech company's perspective on impact measurement and some of the stuff that we've talked about today. So bear with me while I drone on about some tech stuff for the next 10 or 15 minutes. So one of the first questions I've got is impact measurement. What's the point? I mean, there's about 1,100 methods of doing it. There's so many frameworks in so many different sectors. It's all a big faff. Why bother doing it at all? But actually, we've already talked about the legal imperative this morning. We've talked about the Social Value Act, and if you want to do work for public sector organisations, then you have to be able to show that you're having that impact through your work. Secondly, there's the social imperative. So our world is broken. I think it's fair to say. And as businesses, and as a tech business, I feel a responsibility to contribute to fixing what those problems are, or at the very least to not make things worse. I think it's the right thing to do, and we need impact measurement in order to prove that what we're doing has value. This isn't a Syrian refugee camp, by the way. This is a homeless village underneath the Mancunian Way in Manchester. You can just see Manchester Metropolitan University's logo at the top middle of the screen there. This was from about 2 years ago, and it's been moved on since. But it just goes to show the scale of the problem, including homelessness, that there is in Manchester. The global goals have already been brought up this morning. So for people who don't know what the global goals are, the 193 member states of the UN got together and decided what the most important priorities were for the world and for society by 2030. So these are the 17 priorities that they came up with, and to go with them, there's 169 targets and 232 indicators. So there's already a ready-made framework there that can be used by businesses, government, and NGOs. So as a tech business, the kind of ways that we could contribute to this is to make sure that people have access to the right kind of infrastructure, whether that's broadband, whether that's mobile signals. So the target is on the right there, and the indicator is on the bottom left. We can also make sure that the right situation is in place for innovation and for work. We can use technology to do that, or actually it might be just something as fundamental as making sure that everybody has equal access to work and to equal pay. But I'm not going to talk about those two imperatives today. I'm going to talk a bit more about the financial imperative to do it. And being a good business is increasingly good for business. We've already talked today about how being socially good is good for the bottom line, how it's good for profits, how more and more businesses are coming around to the idea that they need to be a responsible member of the community that they're in, and are working with companies like Grant Thornton to kind of formalise how they do that. Shareholders are increasingly expecting it as well these days. But it's not always been the case. In the 1970s, the economist Milton Friedman said that there's one and only one social responsibility of business, and that's to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits. But the 70s was another time, a different age, and luckily there's a bit more of an enlightened approach to this these days. But one of the criticisms that Milton Friedman had was on the idea of corporate philanthropy. He felt that a dollar donated to charity was only worth $1 to the company that was donating it, and there was no more value in it than that. And of course he was right about that. So if we apply this to the concept of Walmart selling guns. So if Walmart stopped selling high-velocity magazines and rifles, the value of not selling those and the lives saved will be worth more than the profits they make from selling those guns, donating them to anti-gun lobbies. So that's how social value and how businesses could contribute more to this. In 2006, the Companies Act was revised to take account of this more enlightened approach to shareholder value. So shareholder value is not just about the financial value brought to shareholders now, but it's also about the impact of the company's operations on the community and the environment as well. Unilever was touched on already today, and Unilever has a statement on their website, and this is it, on how they create value for shareholders, and they're very specific about it. That at the heart of what they do, that they want growth to be consistent, competitive, profitable and responsible. As well as shareholders, investors are expecting it as well. So impact investors have kind of known this for a while. I guess the difficulty with impact investment has been that there's so many ways of measuring social impact that it has been very difficult to compare like for like. And a lot of impact investors in the past have kind of gone with whatever processes are being used by the social enterprise or by the non-profit in the execution of its work. But more mainstream investors are getting interested in this now as well. So this was an open letter written to Apple by one of its major investors recently, who hold about $2 billion worth of shares. So they're concerned about the effects that Apple devices and that screen time is having on the health and the well-being of children. So they want to know what Apple are doing about it, and are they going to be developing apps or processes or tools to be able to ensure that the kids' health and well-being are not affected from using Apple devices. So a brief note on why I work in tech. I love working in tech because I think digital is one of the most effective ways of scaling up and delivering services at scale. I mean, the internet's not going away, mobile technology is not going away. More and more people are getting access to technology. We can use technology behind the scenes for people who have very low tech devices as well. And I believe that tech is the kind of, again, as a tech business, that I feel responsible in trying to help people be all they can be using technology. Whether that's things like using drones to deliver medical supplies in Africa, or whether it's the Granny Cloud, which is pensioners using Skype to reach kids in schools where they have very low educational resources. So they do storytelling and have conversations with kids in India and Africa. Or whether it's helping to save wildlife by using satellite technology to spot human movements in wildlife reserves. So we used to be the technology was used to tag rhinos, but actually now we don't tag rhinos anymore. We keep an eye on human movement and intercept poachers before they get to rhinos. So I'm lucky to be able to work on these kinds of projects and the kind of projects that measure the impact of this kind of work as well. So we worked with Clearly So, the impact investor, to develop a dashboard that helped their investors judge the outcomes of their investment, so that they could make more intelligent decisions about where to put their money in the future. We also worked on Australia's first social value bank, which again was something slightly different. But though I love working in tech, the tech industry has got a PR problem at the moment, and it's been kind of brewing. There's a tech clash been brewing for a while. Whether it's Amazon and the working conditions in their warehouses, or how much tax they pay or don't pay in what countries, whether it's everything that's happening with Uber. This case in particular was after Donald Trump announced his immigration ban and Uber drivers protested. Uber tried to subvert the whole process and did it really badly, which led to a campaign to delete Uber. So 200,000 users deleted Uber off their phones, which also led to the hashtag delete Uber. And the overall impact of that campaign was rival company Lyft had more users for about a week after that, and then it returned to normal again as people discovered actually Uber was quite useful and people liked being able to just pick up a taxi and pay for it without having to speak to anyone. Facebook is a more recent example. There's the whole Cambridge Analytica issue at the moment, but for the past 2 years at least, Facebook's been embroiled in all kinds of tech-related scandals, and it's being accused of encouraging bullying and trolling, protecting child grooming, all that kind of stuff. And Mark Zuckerberg is often very slow to respond to these kind of things. So inevitably, this has led to a delete Facebook hashtag. Though quite naively, I think if it's difficult enough deleting Uber and keeping it deleted, that keeping Facebook removed off your phone when addiction is actually built into it and one of the reasons that people are criticising it in the first place is a little bit naive. And these problems that we put a lot of faith into technology like Facebook. It's useful, so we use it and we don't often think about the data it collects about us or the impact that it's having on our health and well-being. We're becoming more isolated, we're becoming more depressed. Our society at large is being driven by kind of hashtag hate campaigns, and there's a very kind of nasty turn that a lot of our society is taking, and it is being driven by technology and social media. And we're in the process of the fourth industrial revolution at the moment, and that's going to make things happen a lot quicker and a lot more exponential as well. So robotics and AI and automation and autonomous systems. There's a lot of panic about this. Is it going to cost people jobs? Is it going to make us obsolete as human beings? We've already seen the first fatality from a driverless Uber. So these are very real concerns because driverless cars were supposed to be safer in that they could allow for this kind of thing happening and respond in time using technology in a way that a human driver could not. But clearly this isn't the case. Microsoft a couple of years ago launched an AI onto Twitter. So it was an automated chatbot where it would communicate with humans and it would learn from humans on Twitter and it would start interacting and start posting and tweeting, having learned from the humans around it. The problem was it was learning from humans on Twitter. And Twitter's not the most balanced place with the most liberal kind of views on anything. So inevitably this happened. It started quoting Hitler and saying that America should build a wall and Mexico should pay for it and all this kind of stuff. So Microsoft took it off within 24 hours and that was an experiment that failed. We're at a stage now where artificial intelligence no longer needs to learn from humans. It's kind of learning from itself. So one of Google's AIs, its job is to create child AIs to help on tasks to make its own job easier. So technology is getting better at not needing us at all at the moment, and this is a bit of a worry. But luckily, some very clever people at the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers are thinking about these kind of problems at the moment, and they've published a paper around ethical design and about putting humans at the centre of technology and making sure that humans do not suffer from technical developments. So, for example, they're looking at publishing a standard about well-being metrics and how we can gauge the effect of artificial intelligence and autonomous systems on the well-being of the humans that use them, which doesn't exist at the moment. So they're looking into how we will do that. Or, as part of this description says, without metrics that value mental and emotional health at both an individual and the societal level, innovation is impossible to quantify. As a matter of interest, two other standards from this series are one for ethically driven nudging for robotic, intelligent and autonomous systems, which basically means managing overt or hidden suggestions or manipulations designed to influence the behaviour or emotions of a user. So they're thinking about how do we protect when robots and when AI are psychologically manipulating humans into doing things. And they're developing standards for fail-safe designs of autonomous systems as well. So basically, what happens when something fails or when it's not used anymore, that it's not just kind of left there and harms society and the planet. And if this all sounds terrifying, it kind of rightly so, because technology proceeding at a rate without checks and balances and without measurements to find out what the impact of it is, I believe is a big threat to society, and we should be using impact measurement to at least regulate some of this as we're going on. But this is all a new field and it's developing, so it's good to know that somebody is looking at these things. And I think as commissioners and as businesses, we need to be aware of these changes and aware, as a tech business certainly, that the software and the apps that we're not developing are not having an adverse effect on humans. We've been as guilty as any tech company of pushing Facebook in the past to clients, saying, you need to be on Facebook, that's where your supporters are, that's where you build relationships, that's where you engage with them, to then eventually make a sale or to make a donation. But actually it turns out that Facebook has not been that good for people in the end. So how do we prevent that same thing happening in the future? And actually knowing that there's some very clever people on this and are looking into this will stop a vision of the future that kind of looks like this. And I think to go back to Unilever, I touched on this earlier, and I want to come back to them. Okay. So yeah, what they're doing is that they're investing a lot in sustainability, as we mentioned earlier. And actually, it's shown that Unilever's sustainable brands grow 50% faster now than the rest of the business. So again, it's good for their bottom line as well. And they've aligned their sustainability plan with the global goals as well. Not only that, but they've actually mapped their pillars to each of these goals as well. So you can see how they've embedded the global goals into what they do. And this goes back to the 1800s and the start of Unilever, where Lord Leverhulme designed a soap because he saw the squalor in Victorian Britain, and he thought that being able to keep people clean would be good for their health and their well-being. So he saw the opportunity of creating a business that would have social good as well. And that kind of wraps everything up for me. So in summary, what can we do? So if you're a purchaser of products or services, ask if your suppliers are measuring their impact in any way, ideally to a framework. If you're a business looking for opportunities to boost profits, choose the ones that change society for the better. They do exist, and there's a report published every year called the Global Opportunities Report, and there's the Global Goals Compact, which is about business opportunities that fit the global goals. So there's plenty of opportunity out there. If you get a chance, have a look at the consultation on ethically aligned design. It's a fascinating read, and contribute to it, comment on it. And whatever sector you're in, let's work together in partnership and improve the economic, social and environmental opportunities for everyone. Thanks for listening.